Surviving death is one of the greatest feelings that you can have, but there are thousands of such stories where people have survived the impossible. These experiences vary from the man who survived 7 lightning strikes to the woman who fell 33,300 feet from a plane. Today's video brings you 10 people who survived the impossible, but before we start, make sure to subscribe to Inside 10 Survival Gang. Smash that like and bell icon and maybe you'll survive the impossible too. Your in-laws. Let's begin with number 10. Sutomu Yamaguchi. Some 260,000 people survived the atomic bomb attacks on Hiroshima and Nagasaki during World War II. But Japanese engineer Sutomu Yamaguchi was one of the very few who endured the horror of both blasts and lived to tell the tale. Yamaguchi has been in Hiroshima on a business trip, and the day the bomb fell on Hiroshima was supposed to be his last day in the city. Yamaguchi was badly burnt in the blast, and both his eardrums were ruptured. Yamaguchi made his way to the train station with 2 co-workers, who had also survived and begun the trip for his hometown of Nagasaki, where his wife and child lived. Yamaguchi was in the middle of recounting his story to his Nagasaki office when the second bomb detonated. Miraculously, his wife and son also survived. Number 9. Petrovich Bogorski. Russian physicist Anatoly Petrovich Bogorski is the only person ever to put his head in an active particle accelerator. In 1978, while looking at a malfunctioning piece of equipment, he went through what can only be described as the worst-case scenario. His head got in the way of a proton beam, which went through the back of his head and out his nose. He described seeing a flash brighter than 1,000 suns, but he felt no pain. But he lost his hearing and the left half of his face was paralyzed. Number 8. Fernando Parado and Roberto Canessa. On October 13, 1972, a Uruguayan Air Force plane en route from Montevideo to Santiago, Chile, crashed in a pass in the Andes Mountains. Of the 45 people on board, 25 survived, but 8 of them were killed 2 weeks later when an avalanche hit the crash site. After more than 2 months without rescue, 2 athletes, 21-year-old Fernando Parado and a 19-year-old Roberto Canessa, decided to hike off into the wilderness in a desperate search for help. After 10 days, they encountered a livestock herder, and the next day a search team in helicopters reached the survivors. Their story was told in the book and the movie, both called Alive. Number 7. Jose Salvador Alvarenga. He holds the record for the longest solo survival at sea. He was adrift for 438 days and traveled over 6,700 miles. The Salvadorian fisherman said he had been drifting in the Pacific Ocean for 13 months in a 7-meter boat. Having been blown off course during a fishing trip in Mexico, he said he had made it through the 5,000-mile voyage by eating fish, birds, and turtles, and drinking urine, rainwater, and bird blood. Number 6. Roy Sullivan. They say lightning doesn't strike the same place twice, but it did strike the same man 7 times. Roy Sullivan, a Virginia forest ranger, was hit by lightning on 7 different occasions, which puts him in the Guinness Book of World Records. For this reason, he gained a nickname, Human Lightning Conductor and Human Lightning Rod, but sadly he committed suicide a few years later. Number 5. Benson and Dodie. In 1992, Benson and his colleague Chris Dodie were shooting aerial footage of Hawaii for a movie when their helicopter crashed over Kilauea, the world's most active volcano. The cameraman and pilot Craig Hosking plunged inside the volcano crater, nearly missing the boiling lava pool. He was rescued after 2 days with the help of a net that was thrown inside the crater. Number 4. Reshma Begum. Reshma Begum, 19, was working as a seamstress in the Rana Plaza building near Dhaka when the factory collapsed in April 2013. Leaving more than 1,100 workers dead, 17 days later, Reshma was found buried amid the ruins. Eventually, Reshma had found some dried food and a limited supply of water to keep her going during the long days trapped under the wreckage. Number 3. Slavomira Weeks. Slavomira Weeks, a young Polish cavalry officer, was called up to defend his country against the Nazi and Soviet invasions that started World War II. He was captured by Soviet forces and sent to Moscow in 1939. There, he was convicted on a trumped-up charge of espionage and sentenced to 25 years of hard labor. In April 1941, amid a blizzard, Weeks and 6 other prisoners escaped. With the help of the warden's sympathetic wife, they trekked 4,000 miles to the south, crossing the Gobi Desert and the Himalayas. And enduring harsh cold, blazing heat, thirst, and starvation, in 1956, a book called The Long Walk claimed to tell how 7 prisoners escaped from a labor camp in Siberia and walked to India. Number 2. Aaronlston. Aaronlston was climbing Utah's Blue John Canyon in 2003 when a boulder dislodged and pinned his hand to the canyon wall. He spent 6 days struggling to free himself and avoid dehydration and hypothermia. Finally, he took his multi-tool knife and amputated his forearm so that he could crawl out of the canyon to safety. Number 1. Vesna Vulovic. Surviving the longest fall without parachute may sound like something a thrill seeker would try on purpose to beat a record, but in reality, it was a stewardess who, against all odds, survived a terrorist attack on an airplane. On January 26, 1972, Vesna Vulovic took off the Copenhagen on a Yugoslav Airlines flight to Belgrade. On a work assignment caused by a scheduling mix-up as the aircraft flew over what is now the Czech Republic, it exploded. Rescuers eventually found Vulovic in a still-smoking fuselage, her legs poking out of the wreckage, with the 3-inch stiletto heels torn off her shoes by the impact. She lost a massive amount of blood and spent the next 3 days in a coma with a fractured skull, 3 broken vertebrae, and assorted other injuries. But somehow she managed to hang on, being the only survival. Lucky people. Which survival was the most unexpected to you? 2 days inside a volcano, or the story of our number 1 surviving a long fall? We are so curious, so share your opinion with us in the comment section, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel to be a part of our amazing Inside 10 survival gang. See you in the next one!